Hey guys, and welcome to the emergence of esports. This is our first set of slides, and I'll kind of take you through those. Some important things you need to note, though. First off, I'm going to make references to videos. I'll say, hey, there's a video on that. That's in our Moodle shell for you to watch. I did not include them here because the size would have been way too big. So kind of cut down on that. Also, I'll mention some resources. I'll say, hey, that's in our Moodle class. Go ahead, check them out if you want to. They're oftentimes optional, but they also help you understand the material a lot better. So let's kick it off, right? So big question, why do we play games, right? This is what we're going to look at in these sets of slides, is why we play games. You're like, well, professor, we play games because they're fun, man. True. But of course, like anything in academia, we make it more complicated. So let's look at the complications. What does play really mean? First off, normally we think of reality and we think of play as being separate, right? You live in the world, you play online or what have you. But let's take a look at a situation where there's some blurred lines, where kind of games intrude into our reality. There's a case going on right now in China. China's becoming a video game. Kind of, right? So you know this idea of a credit score. Hopefully you got a super solid credit score, 720 or higher, maybe not. But you're getting those loans, mortgage, credit cards, you name it. China doesn't have that. They have what's called a social credit score. And the social credit score is created in a quite different way. They monitor your online presence, everything that you do, everything that you buy, all the time you spend on your computer. And let's take it a little step further. They have cameras, a network of cameras throughout their whole entire countries, big cities, small cities, you name it. And they're not just average cameras, right? These can actually distinguish who you are, what you're doing. And they will rate you high or low depending upon your behavior, right? Crossing a crosswalk when you're not supposed to, right? Run a red light. That's going to lower your social credit score. Think about it like a high score on a video game, right? Well, that does mean that there's rewards and punishment. So if you have a high social credit score in China, you can get access to more things, better things, more loans. And in fact, there's evidence that on dating sites, they'll actually put your profile at the top versus if you have one of those low social credit scores. So if your social credit score is too low, you can't do things like fly on an airplane or go on a high-speed rail. And crazy enough, if your social credit score is too low, there'll actually be a warning when people call you. Be careful of this individual. You're about to talk to somebody with a very low social credit score, and he or she might not be trustworthy. Can you believe this? Isn't that crazy? Right? So here's a question, something to think about. Should we do that here in the United States? Right? We want people to behave and be good. Why not reward them for being good? Why not punish them for being bad? Right? Do you want the government staring over your shoulder at everything you do? Right? Is that bad? Maybe it's good, right? Well, what do you have to hide? If you're a good person, then you'd want this, right? Think about that. I don't think it's coming to the United States, but you never know, right? Okay, so something we need to think about. Play is not only games. I'm going to talk a lot about games, and they're really important, but there are other forms of play, like make-believe, right? I have to do this all the time with my little kids. I have to voice their puppets. Hey, I'm Mr. Dog. Hey, I'm Mr. Bear. Right? We have make-believe. We dress up. We play pretend. We tell jokes, right? Why don't, cannibals eat clowns? Because they taste funny. Dad jokes, gotta love them. We sing songs, parodies, think about Weird Al, right? The Daily Show, they have lots of parodies of what's going on of a newscast. Even irony can be forms of play. So play is not just games, but we're kind of gonna focus a lot on games. Just be aware of that. Okay, Homo Ludens. What is this? This is the seminal work in looking at play. So Homo Ludens, Homo means human, right? Ludens means to play, right? It's not an exact translation. It is Latin, but it kind of means play, sport, school, for fun. And this is the big treatise on play and culture, right? It was written in 1938 by Hutzinger. He's a Dutchman. And here's kind of an important thing. It kind of shaped the field of play research for more than almost a century now. So it's a really important work. And in fact, you have access to it. Head on over to our course Moodle Shell. And it's out of copyright. And you can go ahead and take a look at Homo Ludens. Pretty extensive. But if you're really into this stuff, it's definitely a good read. But we'll kind of walk through some of the key elements of it. But before we jump into that too far, Hutzinger talks about how culture is actually younger than play. We played before we had culture. Think about that. Think about our schools and society and our rules and laws. We played as a species. We actually see other species playing. So right now you're seeing some adorable, cute dogs playing. Who doesn't like that? But dogs actually have a ritual to play. One of the main forms is called the play bow. In the lower left-hand corner of your screen, you can see a dog performing a play bow. They leap forward, kind of with bent legs, and then they normally jump back to the side. This is initiation of play, right? We see these kind of little play rituals in most, but not all, mammals. And this is actually a really cool thing. So dogs have rituals that they use to play games. Interesting factoid, I have a blind dog, and other dogs hate her. Why? She does not perform the play bow when she tries to play. And dogs are uncertain about what she's trying to do. Is she trying to attack me? Because she hasn't gone through the proper rituals of play. So kind of fascinating. Play is older than culture. So So why do we play games, right? You said for fun. I know you're thinking it, but there's lots of different theories about why we play games. One psychological theory is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, it doesn't meet physiological needs. It doesn't give us food or shelter. It's probably not about safety. But number 3, right, up that pyramid, belonging, right? We can make connections. We can interact with other people, right? And esteem, right? We start to feel good about ourselves. If you're one of our TU athletes and you got a scholarship, I bet when you got that scholarship, you're like, yeah, I'm good, right? That boosts your self-esteem. And now you're on there with all your teammates and you're feeling that belongingness. You're feeling the love, right? So we're getting those higher order needs met. So maybe we play because we're feeling like a team. We're feeling good about our capabilities. There are still other ones. Maybe it's a discharge of energy, right? You know, you get out there, you practice hard, you play hard, and you go home and you pass out and get a good night's sleep. Maybe it's some instinct with us, right? You know, the male aggressive nature for competition. Yes, destroy them all, right? Maybe play is training younger kids how to act like adults. Think about a kitten, right? A mom comes along and teaches that kitten how to pounce and jump and bite and stalk prey, right? The kittens follow along the mom, figure out what's going on, right? And that play is actually training for being able to do that when it grows up. Maybe it allows us to develop restraint, right? We have to restrain ourselves. Think about dogs. When they're playing, they may growl and jump and bite, but they're not intending to hurt. They don't bite hard. You know, it's just short, low growls versus, you know, something more intense. Maybe it's wish fulfillment to allow our impulses out, right? When you jump on Grand Theft Auto and you just start mowing down pedestrians, you're like, yeah, kill them all, right? You wouldn't normally do that, but hey, it's fun in the game. And maybe it gives us personal value. We kind of talked about that, mentioned that in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But one key thing about all these theories is that play is not for play's sake, right? Something to think about. All these theories, they're like, oh, we have a biological need for, or a psychological need. There's some kind of need being fulfilled by play. Or is it? Some would argue that play is different, right? That play for play's sake is really important. That nature could have gave us a lot of different ways to, train young people, to release pent-up energy, to make wish fulfillments like dreams, right? Maybe play is just something else, right? An innate element of the mammalian condition. Do we know which is right? Nope. There's lots of those theories, right? But we don't have concrete evidence that says, oh, you play because of this. You know, honestly, I think we play because of a lot of stuff, right? We want to feel part of the team. We want to feel belongingness. It exhausts us. It builds connections. It helps us train young children how to behave, how to follow rules. It all sounds good to me. Okay, Hutzinger talks about 5 key characteristics of play. Play needs to be free. Play is freedom, man. Right? Freedom! So, play has to be freeing. It can't be ordinary, right? It can't be regular life, same old, same old. And somehow it's distinct in both location and duration. You go to the field to play the game. You log into your account to play the game, right? It creates order. Hutzinger talks about order and rule structure. It is absolute and supreme, right? You cannot break those rules. Or can you? We'll talk about that. Play is not materialistic. Play is for fun. And you're like, whoa, professor. I know, I'm sure, a professional athlete still plays, but he's making no buku bucks, right? Well, yeah. Yeah, he is. But is that really play? Is he really having fun? We'll take a look at that. That's a couple more slides down when play stops being play. Okay, so here's your task. Send me an email if you know what the upper right hand picture is. I'll give you a hint. It's one of my favorite video games. Right, and I'll talk about some of my favorite video games a little bit later. But that is a magic circle. Hutzinger talks about the magic circle. What is this thing, right? It's magic. Duh. No, it is, but it's more, right? Think about when you enter the field of play, right? You get on the football field. You get on the basketball court. You enter the tennis court, right? You step up. You step in. You put the controller in your hand. You enter a new world, right? You suspend disbelief. You enter a new reality, right? You leave your old world behind and you jump in to this new world. For me, it's sanctuary, right? Oh, it gives you a clue. But it's not just a sport. Think about the theater and the movie theater. We can't go to those anymore thanks to the pandemic, unless you're listening to this in the future. And then I hope to God everything's okay. But who knows, right? So you go to the theater, the lights go down, you suspend belief, and you're taken into this new world of actors, drama, comedy, right? For us, it was Infinity Wars, right? And then the end, and the curtain goes down, and everybody's dead. You're like, no, right? But church is like this. I was raised Catholic. You have the ritual, the elements, the big cathedral, the blessing as you come in, the blessing as you sit, the kneeling, the standing, the prostrating, right? Even our system of laws, right? You walk in that courthouse and there's defendants, prosecutors, juries, and judges, and decisions, and life or death hangs in the balance. But it's all a magic circle. It's all created by human beings, right? 1,000 years ago, there was churches, but there wasn't the law. It wasn't the courts, same systems, right? But then that was the monarchy. And the worst thing possible is not a cheat. Hutzinger says the worst thing possible is the spoil sport. The man or woman who stands up and says, you have no authority over me. This is a kangaroo court, right? This sport, this game is meaningless, right? It's created by human beings, right? And here's something interesting to think about. Right now, while you're in college, you're in a magic circle. You're stepping into my classroom. You're logging into this presentation, right? You're giving over control to me. I have the control. But you're entering my world and my rules. And you're paying a lot of money to do it, right? To get that reward at the end of the journey, right? Even college is a magic circle. And here's something to think about. Is religion play? Maybe, right? I do miss those rituals from Catholic Church, and I always enjoy going to see some relative getting married and remembering all the pomp and circumstance. And, even us, even right now, we're in that magic circle. Welcome. So, other characteristics of play. Play is a contest without a consequence. Kind of an interesting idea, right? We talked about no monetary value. It's mystery, it's tension, right? You're trying to solve the mystery, find the hidden elements, put the puzzle together, right? To rescue the girl or get the gold. It's a shared mindset, right? You step into that team locker room, right? You're all there, you're all athletes. You're together on the gridiron, facing your opponents. It creates groups, it creates organizations, right? It has a distinct end and beginning. And Hutzinger talks about how it is secrecy, disguise. Kind of interesting stuff, if you ask me. Now, Along comes about 20 years later, Carl Quinoa, right, a Frenchman, 58, publishes Man, Play, and Games. And he kind of takes Hutzinger to task on some of the stuff he did. He kind of revises some stuff. Some of the same. We'll take a look at Man, Play, and Games. And here's something else. This resource is, again, out of copyright and available for you to read on our Moodle shell. So go ahead and give a look. It is a big, long treatise of play. But if this kind of stuff really gets you going, this is the field you're interested in, maybe in the future, then have a look. So here's some differences to look at. Hutzinger and Quinoa both talk about freedom, both talk about separate, unordinary. Quinoa adds this idea of uncertainty, but that was also in Homo Ludens. Rules, regulations are pretty close on a lot of the characteristics of what play is. But Quinoa takes Hutzinger to task in that he kind of left something out, right? A key thing is he doesn't define what a game is. You'd think you wrote a whole book on play, you would tell somebody what a game is, but nope, he kind of left it out. A little conspicuous, I know. He only deals with competitive games, right? So in Homo Ludens, they really only talk about sports and sports-style games. He doesn't talk about gambling and lotto and all these other characteristics. So we'll kind of jump into that. And Quinoa has one last complaint. He argues that the game itself reveals secrets rather than keeps them. Kind of something interesting to think about. Okay, so for Quinoa, these are the 4 different types of play. Agon is competition. This is very much what Hutzinger talked about. But he didn't talk about Aliyah. Aliyah is chance, like gambling, right? Think about roulette. I like playing roulette. It's a nice slow game. It's fun to play, but you can't get good at roulette, right? It's either black or white, odd or even. You play the corners or you play a number. There's no way to get better at roulette. So these are games of chance, and they kind of level the playing field, right? No matter how much you practice, you can't get good at playing the lottery, regardless of what you think. Mimicry is the theater, the art of disguise. It's cosplay, if anybody does that. It's LARPing, even D&D, which is something I play. You take on those characteristic roles. E-links is the idea of vertigo, of body sensation. Think about a kid spinning in a chair over and over and over and over again until he gets dizzy. And this is, in fact, well, maybe you try out your first psychedelic in college. Don't do it. It's illegal, but that's E-links. And there's different degrees. Padilla is kind of like without order. He argues this is like my daughter who is 4 years old. She'll just see a kid, right? Boom. There's a kid in the grocery store and it's like, I'm now your best friend and it's time to play tag. Right? I'm like, come back here. They run off together. They don't know each other from anybody. Right? But it's that instantaneous, spontaneous play. Your roommate smacks you in the head with a pillow, and it's on like Donkey Kong, right? Now it's a pillow fight. That's Padilla, right? He argues that Aliyah, this competitive form of professional play, is not it, right? Ludus is a style of play that's more specific, and he talks about these different types of ludus, but it's more intense, more professional play. It's trying to seek and solve the problem. So Ludus and Agon is sports, right? Ludus and Aliyah is like poker. You're still gambling, right? You still can get a bad hand. But let's be honest, man, they'll blow you away, some of these professional players, how they play that hand, good or bad, right? They can look in your eyes and tell, right? Ludus and mimicry, these are actresses, actors, priests, perhaps, right? Even me. I'm an actor on a stage. Not right now, but in the classroom, right? I'm kind of acting. I'm doing some voiceovers, right? So I take on the role of a professor, of a knowledgeable individual, and I spew my knowledge into your brains, right? He argues that no relation to Illings, this losing control, being dizzy. You can't get better at being dizzy, basically. Okay, Professor, that's well and good. Thanks for telling me all about these old, stuffy theories of play that existed way before computers even did, right? Wow, I am sure they are super useful. Okay, you got me. You got me, son. Right? But let's take a look at a theory that applies directly and looks at video games specifically. Right? So one of the predominant ones called the PENS model, player experience of need satisfaction. Right? Basically, Rigby and Ryan, 2007, wrote a white paper about why certain games do better than others and what elements of the game meet the needs of the player, right? If you're really into this, you can head on over to our Noodle Shell and you can take a look at their white paper. It was an open public forum, so it's freely available. If you're super into this, maybe you're thinking, I would one day love to design video games or even stories if you're a writer. It talks about how we keep people glued to games. So there's 3 characteristics they talk about in the PENS model: autonomy, relatedness, and competency. Right? Autonomy is feeling like you're free and in control of yourself and the world. Right? You may not be feeling this right now with the pandemic, but you can log into your video game in the open world. I think of Red Dead Redemption 2, right? Your alignment can go good or bad depending on what you do. You affect the world and you affect yourself. We probably all played a video game where you make a choice, but regardless of the choice, within a move or two or a couple scenes, regardless of the choice, it's the same exact outcome. This is kind of the falsity of autonomy, but as long as you feel like you have autonomy, it works. Relatedness, you feel like you can contribute, that you matter, that you're connected to the story, that the story is meaningful to you. This can also be if you're playing with others. Competency is feeling like you can achieve the goals. You can level up your character. You can move to the next level. You can get better and better. And in their white paper, and the book more extensively, it's argued that whatever game you play, right? Whatever game you play is actually meeting a need that you are not getting from real life, right? Because real life is hard. It's difficult, right? You're spending year after year after year after year, right? 4 years, maybe 5 years, heaven forbid, in college just to make that achievement, right? But in video games, man, you can crush that bad boy in 10 hours, 20 hours, right? You can hit those high levels. You can get those achievements, get the badges, the weapons, you name it. It makes it fun, right? You might not feel like you have a lot of autonomy, but in that game, right? You can play with your buddies. You can feel like you're meaningful. Because video games make it easy. Life is hard, right? And a lot of this actually stems from motivational psychology. So here's a look at some games that kind of exemplify the different characteristics. So if you're a Skyrimmer, if you like your World of Warcraft, open worlds, if you need that relatedness, the teams, right? CSGO, League of Legends. You can jump on over to competency, leveling up your Meat Boy, right? Getting to the higher levels in Mario. Even if you're playing Guitar Hero. And the real interesting thing about this is different societies and different people have different needs. And that was on the last slide. I forgot to mention that, but it's key here, right? So Dance Dance Revolution, a lot of the platformers are big in Asian countries, More of the open worlds tend to be more Americans. It's not exclusive, right? But there's just this leaning towards it. So I want you to take a second, right? Think about your favorite games. Like me? Well, huge fan of Diablo, right? I'm hoping Diablo 4 is good. Not too excited about the mobile game they're doing, Blah, right? So think about what do you like to play? Well, two of those big needs are autonomy and relatedness in Diablo for me, right? I get to level up my character, better armor, better equipment, new levels. But I also feel like autonomy. I can explore the world, I can move around, I can do and have free will, right? So just give a thought. What is your game saying about your needs? Not just fun, right? Originally, when designers were creating games, they were thinking, well, if I just make this game fun, people will play it. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they will. But will they keep playing it, right? So we'll get to this later on more in depth about Pong. Is Pong the first game? Maybe, but we'll look more into that. But people played a lot of Pong. But then all of a sudden, within a year or so, it was dead. It was gone. There was just only so much Pong you could play. But think about your favorite games, right? I still go back to Diablo 3 and play it periodically because it's a blast, right? I get to try new characters and different things, and I can run the game differently. But Pong, you could just hit a ball, right? So it can't be just fun, right? In the PENS model, they talk about you need to look deeper into those needs and understand these concepts of, what are the player's needs. That's why you got to play test games. You got to ask participants directly what games they play and what's bad or good about them. That's a really strong indicator of a really good game. It's not just fun. It's a deeper psychological need that's being met. When games stop being played. Well, we talked about this before. Remember Hutzinger said games, it's competition without consequences. So you're not making money out of it. You're like, well, what about professional athletes? Well, here's the interesting thing, right? Is when you take play and you make it for pay. So a lot of you that are listening to this are probably athletes, right? Not all. Maybe you're musicians too or something else. But you may have got a scholarship, right? Now you got to play to keep that scholarship, right? So you're not technically being paid, but you're getting compensated in a way, right? And what that all means is that all of a sudden it's not without consequence, right? You stop playing, you drop out of the baseball team, you lose that scholarship, right? Unless you've got a good reason. Right? Maybe break your arm, I don't know. But you think of professional athletes, right? They are paid to play. And they play a lot. But oftentimes what happens when a professional athlete stops being paid when they retire, they stop playing. They'll still play periodically, maybe for charity, but in no way, shape, or form at the level they used to. They even did this experiment where they paid people good money, minimum wage, up to 20 hours a week to play their favorite video game. And what happened? Lo and behold, people played a lot of their favorite video game, right? They maxed that puppy out every week for 2 weeks. Then what happened? They stopped paying people. But they followed them afterwards. And what they actually found is that people's play suddenly dropped to almost nothing, right? They weren't even at the same level of before when they weren't being paid. So what happens is when we are paid to play, it's no longer fun, right? Now it's serious work. So I always hesitate when people say, oh, you should get paid to do something you love, right? Well, that's not a bad idea, but actually a lot of times when we get paid to do our favorite thing, right, we stop loving the favorite thing. So it's not always a good thing, but you know, you want to find something you want to do, right? So that's kind of wrapping it up, and I'll catch you on the flippity flop for the next set of slides.